And Your Best 50. I'm your host, Jim Turpin. Today we're going to talk about a subject that most people don't like to talk about, but it is the subject of many emails that I've received within the last 2 weeks, and that is the subject of long-term care. Long-term care is the number one issue that causes impoverishment on anyone over 65. So it is the number one thing that forces people to run out of money, and that is not planning properly for your long-term care. So we're going to make it real simple today. We're going to break it down into 3 sections. One of them, how to prepare, how to have that conversation with mom and dad if you already haven't or they haven't about what their long-term care plan is, how to plan for it and pay for it, and then what if you think it's too late to do anything. It's never too late to do something, but it might be too late to really go out and fully solve the problem. So we'll talk about some options if you've waited too long and procrastinated to the point where going out and buying a long-term care policy or coming up with something along those lines may not be the right result. So let's talk about the conversation. I jokingly refer to this conversation with mom and dad as the reverse sex talk. Remember when you were a kid, mom and dad had to have the talk with you, about the birds and the bees. Well, it was probably uncomfortable for both mom and dad as well as you. This is just that talk in reverse. It's the conversation with mom and dad that no one wants to have. Hey, mom and dad, what have you done to prepare for a long-term care event? So you're basically saying to your parents, hey, mom and dad, you're going to get sick. What are we doing about it? It's not really something that you want to have with your parents, but let me tell you, it's better to have it and it be uncomfortable than not to have it and get into a situation where you're going to be spending down assets, maybe not only just mom and dad's, but maybe you, your siblings, your other family members, maybe having to kick in to pay for mom and dad. Or worse yet, mom or dad end up in a Medicaid facility. These are not the greatest facilities in the world. They're Medicaid facilities for a reason. No one there can really afford to pay for them. So this is really one of those services you get what you pay for. So given that, let's talk about the conversation. I always tell people, look, if you don't know what mom and dad have already done for long-term care, just come out and ask for it. Hey, have you guys done anything about planning for long-term care? I know it may be something you don't necessarily want to talk about, but hey, as your son, daughter, or as family members, you want to know what's going on. It may also be a conversation you have with an uncle who never got married, or an aunt who never got married, or a family member who is widowed or is a widower. These are those conversations that, I think are best done just by coming out and asking, hey, what have you done? It's as simple as that. Now, once you've broken the seal on this conversation, if they say they don't want to talk about it, you have to push on it. You have to ask, hey, listen, I don't want to have this conversation any more than you do, but I also want to make sure that everything you've worked hard for all your life, that you've done for mom or mom's done for dad or whatever the situation might be, is that, we're able to preserve that. I always tell people, hey, listen, sick the grandkids on them. Listen, hey, mom, dad, you may not want to talk about it about for me or, my brother or my sister, but how about your grandkids? Wouldn't you like to know that everything you've worked really hard for, the beach house, the house in the Poconos, the house at the Delaware Shore, whatever it might be, that is going to last on for generations to come? That not only are your kids going to be able to enjoy those items, but your grandkids as well. Well, if we ever have a long-term care event, then we may be putting those assets at risk. And, really, in a survey a few years ago, 70% of those who get asked this question say, I'm never going to have a long-term care event. But the real facts of the matter are this. 65% of you over the age of 65 will have some sort of long-term care event in your lifetime. 65% of you, okay? So that means all of you putting your hands up going, not me, the odds are that it is going to be you. So be prepared for it. So have the conversation. Make sure that mom and dad are thinking about it. So how do I plan for it? It's pretty simple. It may sound complicated, but it is pretty straightforward. Start talking to professionals first and foremost. Talk to someone, talk to your financial advisor, talk to your insurance agent, whoever that key person in your life might be. Have that conversation with them about, hey, how do we go about paying for long-term care? I know the first thing everyone thinks of, hey, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. Well, that might be the case, but until you do some due diligence and find out what your options are or how much it actually costs, you really don't know. So make sure that you go out and you have an understanding of how to pay for it. So the traditional way is going out and buying a long-term care policy that just does that. It pays for an event in the case of a long-term care incident. Now, the old policies, if you have a policy that's more than 10 years old, were very robust. They paid a lot of money. And the rates on them were fairly low. So I always tell somebody, if you have a policy that's over 10 years old, keep paying on it. Don't let it elapse. Because quite often, those are some great policies. And the reason so few companies offer a traditional long-term care policy anymore is just because of that. These companies wrote too many really good policies. They were too good to be true. Well, they're not too good to be true, but they were so popular that they oversold them. And they put too much risk on their books. So they had to stop offering them. And by doing that, they then make the cost of everything go up for everybody else. So in those cases, I tell everyone, stick with it, stay with it, keep paying on it. It's probably a great plan. However, if you're looking to go out and buy a long-term care policy today, most of them are much like what I call car insurance. You're happy if you have it, if you have a long-term care event, but if you never have a long-term care event, if you're one of the 35%, then all you have to show for it is a bunch of canceled checks. So I want to look for a policy, if it's just a standalone policy, that has what we call return of premium on it. So if you have the policy, say, for 7, 8, 10 years, and you don't use it, and then you eventually pass away without using it, you get all your money back, or you get a large portion of your premiums back that you've paid. So that's one way to look at it. So you really don't have the opportunity to lose all that money. So that's one way to take a look at it. Now, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and we'll talk about some other options that you can look at when it comes to selecting a long-term care policy for you or a loved one.
For independent living for seniors age 62 and over, People Inc. offers safe, maintenance-free apartments across Western New York. The affordable rent is income-based. For more information, call People Inc. Senior Living at 817-9090.
Looking for a cooking oil with a light flavor and reduced absorption so food preserves its natural flavor? One with a high smoke point for stir-frying, sautéing, grilling, and baking? Then choose all-natural Pompeian 100% grapeseed oil, imported from France. Grapes have been a key ingredient of the healthy Mediterranean diet for years. Pompeian 100% grapeseed oil is the chef's choice for high-heat cooking, grilling, stir-frying, sautéing, or even deep frying. And Pompeian 100% grapeseed oil is great for baking too, because its delicate taste does not overwhelm the flavor of cakes, cookies, and other favorite recipes. A key traditional ingredient of the Mediterranean, grapeseed oil is a rich source of vitamin E antioxidant and naturally gluten-free. Buy imported Pompeian 100% grapeseed oil today and find great recipes at Pompeian.com.
Wait, don't let this happen to you. At Jan Fence, we're family owned and operated for over 50 years, providing a wide choice of fencing. Why wait online at the big box store? Just call Jan Fence. Ask about our Easy Fence to Go products by Active Yards, the first truly do-it-yourself fence product.
At Jan Fence, we always do what we say. Come see us today.
Step into an extraordinary world that will excite your senses. Experience our delectable Mughlai cuisine and the magic of tandoori savoir-faire. Let our international award-winning team delight you with a taste of heaven. Enjoy our mouth-watering flavors and our unique flair for excellence. Savor the elegance of fine dining and catering. Shazam Restaurant. Indulge your taste buds.
Today's show has been sponsored by More Than Gifts. Come see our new location in Marlton, New Jersey. Not just gifts, but more.
Welcome back to Radio Vision Network and Your Best 50. I'm your host, Jim Turpin. So let's pick up where we left off with selecting a good long-term care policy or the right long-term care policy for your family. So when you're coming to figure out what type of policy, first and foremost, you have to be able to afford it. So like I said before, there are the traditional long-term care policies where you're going to pay for it along the way. You pay for it every month, every year, every quarter, just like you would your car insurance. If you use it, great. If you don't, again, you have nothing to show for it. Now there are some newer policies out that will have a return of premium on them. So if you never use the policy and you own it long enough, they'll give you all your money back when you pass away. So it basically comes back to your family as a death benefit, which is a nice option. Now, there are a couple of other options to look at. If you're still in good health, and this is really a great item for those who are a little bit younger as well. If you're still in good health and you can pass underwriting for a permanent life insurance policy, then pick a company that has a long-term care rider to that life insurance policy. So here's how it works. It's basically like buying one product that fills potentially 2 or 3 issues for you down the road. Now remember, and for those of you who are consistent listeners, I always say you never buy life insurance as an investment. Life insurance is purchased as protection, and that's exactly what you're going to do here. So if you look at some of the companies that are out there, they'll offer you a life insurance policy and have what we call a rider on it. So it's an additional benefit to the policy. In this case, it pays for long-term care. So there are a couple companies out there that'll give you as much as $10,000 a month in long-term care coverage up to the face value of the life insurance policy. So say, for example, I'll keep the numbers nice and easy. If you have a $300,000 death benefit, it'll give you $10,000 a month for 30 months. Pretty simple. So if I have a long-term care issue, I have this policy sitting behind me that's going to pay for it, $10,000 a month, and then let's say I'm in for a year. Well, I've now reduced my death benefit by $120,000, but my family's still getting $180,000 at my death, and they did not have to reach into our own personal assets to pay my long-term care stay. So while you may say, yes, I'm getting a lower death benefit, I didn't have to put any money out to pay for that long-term care piece. So, what would you rather have? Would you rather have the $300,000 and dish out the $120,000 up front, or have somebody else pay the $120,000 and then you get something in return? So the family's made whole for the $300,000, except you just used a portion of it before the parent passed away. To me, that might be the smartest thing to do. That way, no one has to reach into their pocket. No one's looking to see what's going on if you can pay for it. We have a policy in place. We have something to pay for the long-term care. And that way, we're letting somebody else pay for our issue, which is the way I like it the best. Now, you may say, hey, listen, we've waited too long. I don't have another option. I'm uninsurable. There are still options out there for you. So let's say, for example, that you can't afford a permanent life insurance policy, but you might be able to afford a term policy. So if you still are eligible to be underwritten for life insurance, I can buy a term policy, maybe 20, 25 years, depending on how old I am. So for example, if I'm 60 years old, I'm going to buy a 20 or 25 year term policy and pay that every year. Now, it's going to be cheaper than permanent, but it's also, you do run the risk of outliving it. And a lot of times with the term policies, not always, but a lot of times with the term policies, there's no additional benefits. But you're going to have to talk to your advisor about that up front. So in this case, I've done no planning. I have a long-term care event, but I have this term policy. So what we're looking at is the family fronting the money, the opposite of what we just talked about, and then the money being backloaded into the family after that person passes away. Now, the key there is, A, is there enough assets out there that allows the family to pay for that care, and there's enough assets to create the bridge until we get to mom or dad's passing. Now, I know that's not a happy scenario to think about, but it's a very practical one to think about. Again, it all goes back to the conversation. Hey, do mom and dad want their legacy to live on for generations after them? Or do they want it to end with them because of a long-term care event? Mom and dad have to make that choice, but you as the kids can really help influence that. And I think that's really where, coming to the table with mom and dad with some options or some strategies is a good way to do it, right? So now think about this. Again, if I have that $500,000 million term policy, then the kids somebody's going to have to front the money, and then when the parent passes, it all gets backloaded. So everyone gets made whole in the end. It just depends if you have enough liquid assets to pay for it. Now, the third option is using an annuity that would have that same long-term care rider to it. So for an example, if you understand how an annuity works, most annuities today, a good one, will have what's called a guaranteed income rider on it. So you buy an annuity, even if the account goes to zero, a paycheck keeps coming for mom or dad. In this case, if it has a long-term care rider on it, it might either double the payment or raise the payment by 50% as long as somebody's in a long-term care facility or is qualifying for long-term care. Now, it almost always is not, I repeat, is not going to fill the entire need. It's just not. But it's a guaranteed payment every month or every year. Even if it goes to zero, you're going to have payments coming in. Again, that guarantee is based upon the paying ability of the insurance company that you purchased the annuity from, so make sure it's through at least an A-rated carrier. And then at least we have something coming in. Even if it goes to zero, that check keeps coming, and it's something. It is better than nothing. And it might be that bridge that gets mom and dad through to that term policy that you have, that you're paying for. And sometimes the annuity is used to pay for that term policy on top of it. So it's a little bit of a different strategy, but it's certainly something you can look into. And to me, it's kind of that last segment of, hey, in case of emergency, break glass, it's a way for me to do it. So we're going to take our final break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk in the end about picking out a facility and kind of those last pieces of the planning puzzle when it comes to long-term care. We'll be right back.
In a world where bankers have lost all interest, where robots and fat cats rule our fortunes, one woman will stand up and strive to do the impossible. Be treated like a person. Friends and neighbors will join her quest. Ordinary people will band together against the forces of corporate greed. And together they will form Philadelphia Federal Credit Union, already in a neighborhood near you.
Imagine the finest hand-selected USDA prime steak you'll ever have. The freshest line-caught seafood, our Wine Spectator award-winning wine list, and soul-satisfying desserts. Bring that together with the perfect date, the winning business deal, a memorable family celebration. Welcome to Rod's Steak and Seafood Grill in nearby Morristown, New Jersey. Bring your appetite and feed your passion.
Your credit score is yours, and at Experian Credit Expert, we want to help you really use it. With access to helpful Experian experts over the phone and online, we can help you use it to get a better idea of what info the banks have on you. Use it to get more choice of mortgages. Use it to make your money go further. Take the next step to improving your financial future with your free 30-day trial at Experian.co.uk.
Here at Freppy's Tex-Mex, you can definitely taste the freshness in our food. You should definitely come to Freppy's because it's a great place. You can bring your family, very kid-friendly. All my servers are amazing, friendly people. Everyone here is just happy to serve, and I think it shows. The thing that sets us apart is the quality and freshness of our food. And I think once you try it, you'd be coming back. I'm Joe DeSario, co-owner of Freppy's Tex-Mex in Plainfield, New Jersey.
Today's show has been sponsored by More Than Gifts. Come see our new location in Marlton, New Jersey. Not just gifts, but more.
Welcome back to Radio Vision Network and Your Best 50. I'm your host, Jim Turpin. All right, so we're going to wrap up this episode with the final piece to the long-term care planning session, and that is actually doing the planning and actually figuring out what to do. So you've had the talk, you know what some of your options are, or you don't know what some of your options are. Now it's time to come talk to somebody. So a good financial advisor or financial planner, whoever your professional is in that area, will know, if he or she is worth her salt, will know what your options are, right? That person is going to understand what you can and can't afford to do. Now, it's my opinion that you should be doing something, but it has to be something you can afford. So whether that is just a term policy to backfill, whether that is you can swing a permanent life insurance policy if you are still insurable. Again, this is something the earlier you start or the younger you start, the cheaper it's going to be every year for you. But again, if you've waited too late or you can't pass underwriting, you do have that last option, which is using an annuity that would have a long-term care rider to it that would either increase the payment by 50% or double it while you have a long-term care, while you're in long-term care. Now, here are the different types of long-term care that you need to understand. You can have long-term care where you're in a facility that is eligible to get a payout. So whether that is traditionally what we used to call a nursing home or a senior living facility, which many of the senior living facilities today have different levels of care. So usually today they have independent living. So, you have some health issues, you have some issues, but, you can still kind of take care of yourself, but you can't stay in the house anymore, and you can't, stay in the apartment anymore. So you go into, the independent living wing. Now, then there's assisted living. You may have a chronic back issue. Shockingly, many people don't realize that would potentially qualify for a long-term care piece, because if it prohibits you from doing 2 of the 6 ADLs or activities of daily living, say for example you can't transfer yourself off a chair by yourself or go to the bathroom by yourself, those are a couple of those items, or can't dress yourself, then you're going to qualify for long-term care coverage. So you may be in the assisted living wing of a facility. When it comes to picking out a facility, you need to make sure you go visit it. Don't just take somebody's recommendation on it. I even tell my clients, when they ask me for a recommendation on where to go, I always tell them, look at these 3 places or look at these 2 places, because I know that's going to solve the issue or going to give you the best care from mom and dad for what they have. But go see it. Go see it for yourself. You, most importantly, have to have confidence in the staff and have to have confidence in the facility that they're going to take care of mom and dad. You don't want to put them in any place that you're not comfortable with. Now, the other option is to have somebody come into your home and take care of it. Now, you need to make sure that the policy that you're selecting or that you might have already is going to cover that. If your wishes are you want to stay in your house as long as possible, then you want to make sure that you're purchasing a policy that's going to allow you to do such. Not all of them will, most of them do, but that's a key piece in making sure you understand what's important to you. And your advisor should be asking those questions, all right, of, going through, do you want to stay in the house? Is the house too big? Is the house too small? Many times you might have an older home, something built in the late 60s, early 70s, that, isn't very friendly as we get older. There's no bedrooms on the first floor. There's lots of stairs. The bathrooms don't have the proper railings in them. These are all sorts of things that go on with when you want to select, hey, I want to stay in my home. There may be a lot of other costs involved with staying in your home that's going to make it prohibitive to staying in the house, and you're better off in a facility. But these are all things that you should be having that conversation not only with mom and dad, but your advisor. And your advisor should be asking these questions as well. They should know you well enough to understand, hey, mom and dad need this, mom and dad want that, we want this for mom and dad. And they should be asking those questions for you. Now, last thing I want to mention, and I'm talking to the kids now, don't forget yourselves. While you're having this conversation with mom and dad, make sure you're prepared as well. Don't be a hypocrite about it. Don't ask mom and dad what have they done for it and you're not doing anything as well. Quite often, a great piece of planning is go in with mom and dad and do it for both families, both generations. So you and mom and dad are going in, you're educating yourselves, you're understanding what your options are, and now you're taking care of that situation for both you and your family as well as mom and dad. So it's a great way to do it together. It makes the conversation a little bit more easier. Again, it is not an easy conversation to have, but to me, it's one of the most important conversations to have with mom and dad, or even with your kids. If you're a parent who's already done this planning, make sure your kids have done it as well, or in the process of doing it. Remember, mom and the kids, as the younger they are, the cheaper it is to get this type of coverage. So your best asset is your youth and your health. So make sure you take advantage of those two items, because every day you're around, you're just getting older and sicker. So take those things into account when you start to have the conversation and as you're getting ready to go see your advisor. So again, make sure you have the conversation, know your options, and get to your advisor to make sure you know what's going on. So thanks again for joining us on Your Best 50. I'm Jim Turpin. If you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me at 856-685-7825. You can email the show at yourbest50@gmail.com. And you can also reach us on Twitter at JimTurpin_WTER. Thanks, and thanks for tuning in again to Your Best 50, and we'll see you next week.